Welcome to Geeks in Our 30s. So today we're going to be talking about The Last Jedi. We're going to be doing a review. The way that we want to do it is we're going to kind of walk through first impressions, general ideas about the movie, and then after that we're going to put a big flashy spoiler thing, and then after that all no holds barred, and we'll just talk about like literally everything. We're going to kind of over geek into it and attempt to go there. So first of all, Kipp, where did you see the movie?
So I saw the movie on opening night at the Easton Theater in Columbus, Ohio. It was a packed theater. We had recliner seats. It was really schmoozy. But like I said, I had to go totally all in because it's Star Wars. You got to spend the big bucks and get the recliner seats in the IMAX theater for Star Wars. So I saw it right on opening night with a packed crowd, everyone wearing Star Wars shirts. There wasn't anybody dressed up. I was hoping there was going to be, but there really wasn't. How about you, Dan? Where did you see the movie and when?
So I'm based out of Grand Rapids. I saw it at a theater kind of a little bit outside of town, and it was not super packed. I saw it on Friday, so today is Wednesday, the sort of week following the release of the movie. And it was pretty packed, but there were still, I noticed that seats were available. It was not like totally toned down because people still clapped during the movie. Mm-hmm. If that gives you a sense of the level of still excitedness that people have. Just clapping at movies is a thing that we do now, I think. So I saw it on Friday night. So maybe, the fever was beginning, or was still at like high level, but not
right.
The opening.
Okay, so Dan, I'm going to go through kind of my pre-spoiler impressions of the movie, and then I'm going to ask you to do the same. I would say that overall, I found the movie to be interesting, fun, but ultimately had a deep sense of disappointment for me. Because I felt like there was things that were promised and that should have been in the movie that just weren't there. And it really confused me, and ultimately, kind of as I processed the movie over a couple of days, made me feel kind of a sense of loss or a sense of sadness. And not a good sense of loss and sadness like I should feel, like, oh, this happened in the movie and this parallels how I feel. Kind of like, oh, we kind of missed the opportunity that we could have shown something really spectacular here, or they could have like completed an arc that has been in works for the last like 30, 40 years, and the arc is really dead now. And they can't really do anything. So there's definitely things I loved. There was things that were great. Certain parts that I thought were probably the best in any Star Wars movie to date. And then there were parts that I just really felt kind of pissed off, to be honest, about. And felt, yeah. So that's kind of spoiler-free review for now. How about you, Dan? What would you say?
I think I would definitely echo some of your sentiments, which are there are certainly parts that are very high highs, but there were I think more for me it wasn't the like low lows. I didn't really feel like, I think to this point in time we have like sort of the Disney machine behind everything. Mm-hmm. You're not going to get like poorly made low lows. You're just going to get kind of confusing or like disparate, or kind of like, why is this here, or why is this in this order?
Right.
I think for me those were the points where it's kind of like, why is that here right now? And does that really fit with like what's happening or who the characters are right now? And so I would say I generally walked away from the movie, very happy about it. Mm-hmm. I typically warn my friends that going to see a movie with me is like terrible, because I like to sort of go into the weeds right afterward, and right. I can never decide if I like a movie immediately after. So actually, I'm really happy we've done a little bit of a delay from when I saw it till right now. Mm-hmm. Just to like process that kind of stuff. I say generally happy, but there are some confusing parts.
I agree with that about the processing piece, because this is a movie you have to process. Because I think if you would have asked me immediately when I walked out, I would have liked it more. But I think I needed some time to kind of digest what happened. And maybe that's a testament to the movie in itself, that it had some depth that you had to spend some time on, versus some of the others. I imagine it's similar to how people felt when they walked out of Empire, but in a very different direction.
Yeah. I think so. If I think I went the actual probably opposite arc, which was if you had asked me like right after seeing the movie, it would have been like, yeah, I mean, I was probably going to see it anyways. Like,
Right.
I don't know. It's Star Wars. I'm me. There's Star Wars poster in the background. It's like I was going to go see it. But now I'm kind of coming around on there's like legitimately some parts that I really liked. Some places that they took bits of canon that they're not they were not what you were expecting them to be, but what they wound up being was or could be interesting. I guess that's like the interesting tack for like episode 9.
Right.
Some of the places are like, oh, well, what are you going to do with that?
Right.
That was one thing that you and I had talked about before we started the episode, which was the what was set up in Force Awakens that did or didn't cross over to this movie, and so I think they delivered very confusingly on a couple of things.
Right, definitely. So, okay, so now this here is the spoiler warning. So if you haven't seen the movie and you don't want to have anything spoiled, you should pause the video now, leave it on your browser, go to the movie, come back, and then hit play again. So, okay, so getting into spoilers, 3, 2, 1, go. Okay, so Dan, how we're going to do this is we're going to go through the movie kind of scene by scene, and the opening battle has Poe Dameron flying kind of Tokyo Drift style in an X-Wing, going around taking out these cannons on what is basically like an Imperial destroyer.
Mm-hmm.
No, it wasn't the Dreadnought yet, right? Because the Dreadnought kind of flew in afterwards, and then
it's the big like, oh my god, you're totally screwed now.
Right. So, what were your thoughts about kind of the opening battle? What were your impressions?
So I've only seen the movie the one time. I think at this point in time the magic is already there. I think the like action scenes are so kind of well done that I am never typically bored during them. But like right now I'm super struggling to remember anything from it other than like it was fun and enjoyable.
Well, the first thing that I would say that was like notable about it was the way that Poe actually flew the X-Wing was really unique. And I meant that when I said like the Tokyo drifting thing, because he did things in the X-Wing that no one has ever done before. Like there's one point where he literally does like almost like he's putting on the parking brake, and he swings it around, and like he's flying. It's reminiscent of the trench run. But it's not quite because it's over the top of something. And I just thought that was really unique. They like added something, and it added to his character as being kind of a unique, exemplary like pilot, in a way that we haven't seen with Luke or Anakin, where their flying has been very like straightforward, that he was kind of like drifting around and doing like crazy moves, and I really appreciated that, and I really liked Poe as a character, and it was fun to like start off with him like right off the bat. So what then happens is the Dreadnought comes in. Poe makes kind of the executive decision. I am going to go through and take out this Dreadnought because this is he used the word fleet killer, right? And Leia, who's the general, says, don't do that, like come back home, but ultimately goes along with him and sends in what it looks like these Y-Wings, but I guess they weren't Y-Wings, they were just called Resistance Bombers.
Yeah, they're like B-wing looking. They've got the balls of explosion thing that like they drop down. Yeah,
right. Which was a little confusing because there's no gravity in space.
That is certainly gravity is much less pronounced, and probably not going to drop a bomb in the way that we think that it would. So, I do like Poe. In this movie, I think he's probably the strongest character from the movie.
Yeah.
In that something happened to him, and the way that he is at the beginning. Although he doesn't maybe... I guess he does actually learn a thing, and probably the last thing you see him do, which we'll totally get to in a bit, the last thing you see him do is learning from this lesson and this lesson set.
Well, and I really liked it because I liked the lesson, and that Dan's kind of alluding to, is about not like acting on impulse and emotion, which I really like that lesson because I actually feel like that's a lesson that a lot of young men have to learn in their life. I know I've had to learn that lesson. That like whenever I'm pissed off or angry, I just want to go like do what I think is just and like act on that self-righteousness. And the lesson that Poe kind of goes through his character arc is recognizing that taking action or acting on impulse isn't always the best move. And there's something about patience, and that kind of parallels the Jedi and Yoda and not going to the dark side. And so I really appreciated that. I thought that was like a cool little echo. You know, George Lucas calls it echoes across the movies. I really appreciated that. So,
yeah, and definitely too the like they're doing a new thing that has not been seen does come up more in the film, but I definitely like his style. I actually watched The Force Awakens yesterday night just to refresh my brain on kind of everything that happened because I did a really bad job of watching it before The Last Jedi because 31 got things I got to do. So his like flying, actually, even in Force Awakens, is very. It's called attention to. There's actually a scene where Finn is like, "Now that's a pilot."
Yeah.
He's like really excited about Poe, even if he doesn't know it's him.
He's celebrating their bromance.
Yeah, so just far, he's just like, I can just tell this guy is like my buddy.
So, what then happens in the movie at that point is that the Y-Wings resistance bombers, the X-Wings have to... They can't shoot Poe because he's too close. So they send TIE fighters out. The TIE fighters go after the X-Wings. They send a fleet of X-Wings, and it's like the ultimate escort mission, right? Which is, if you're a gamer, is the worst type of mission. But it's protecting these Y-Wing bombers, and that is when we get introduced to our first new character, which is Paige Tycho. I don't know how to say it, but it's Rose from later in the movie's sister.
Yeah.
And so it's her job she's the one ship that kind of gets through the battle, and she's trying to drop the bombs down on the Dreadnought, which is this big fleet-killing machine. And there's a big catastrophe, which isn't surprising. Her controller for dropping the bombs is on the edge. She has to kick the ladder. And there's a cool tension in that moment because you're not sure if she's using the Force, right? Because she's rubbing that amulet, at the same time, and she's kicking the thing, and you're kind of wondering, like, is she using just makes you think about it just a little. Right? Like, is she going to be Force sensitive? I don't think she ends up doing it. It's just like the kick that gets it off the ladder. But it's cool how Rian Johnson got you just getting your brain, just teases it a little bit. Just like in Rogue One, they kind of just teased the Force a little bit. So I don't know, Dan, what your impressions of that scene were.
I guess I only remember that was a thing because later on when she's like touching the medallion, it was. I do remember thinking that she was like, maybe you're using the Force, but I was totally zoning out because it's the big action scenes. I feel like that's going to be a recurring theme. Is like whenever there's like big action.
That's okay.
Like I don't know. I think it happened.
That's like, okay.
It's so flashy. It's so well done. They're so good at this now. It's like
that's okay. I don't think people are necessarily so intrigued with what happened to Paige anyway. So that's probably also why you lost sight of it. We're gonna keep her moving here though. Yep. So Paige dies clearly, and Poe gets back to the ship, thinking he's gonna be a hero. Right? He's like, I'm the best. I'm amazing. Look I'm a star. And Leia comes up and basically says, "You're an idiot. I'm demoting you. You lost all of our bombers, and now we're really screwed." And gets reprimanded. And that's our introduction to Leia in this movie, which, if you're a fan of Carrie Fisher obviously passed away. But I thought that was that's a very Rian Johnson move there. It's like what you think is coming isn't coming. That's kind of a big theme across this movie and all of his movies. So...
Yeah, I would say my favorite characters in this movie were Leia and Poe. Mm-hmm. And I think it was exactly because of the Leia feels like the sense of loss. And I think the older I get, the more sappy I kind of get, the more understanding I really start to feel from scenes like that, where it's like, yeah, but, like a bunch of people just died, and you actually really have to own that a little bit. And I love the way that Carrie Fisher delivered that. I thought it was really cool. I liked having Poe reprimanded for just like a flyboy. I think flyboy was actually the only time, maybe one of two times during the movie that I laughed, and I don't think anybody else laughed when he got called a flyboy. I was kind of like, ooh, just got sizzled. So yeah, that was. I think that's the theme of the movie, though. Like,
right,
and that was even in the trailer. Like, this isn't gonna go the way you think
it is.
So yeah, and I think that's probably that's going to be the theme. That's going to be the rhyme scheme that we hear throughout most of the movie.
And isn't it like that's a thing that I really love too? Is that the part of the Poe story that is when you're a rebel, like you don't like authority. Like that's kind of like the core part of being a rebel, and then being told like when you acted in a rebellious way and you were successful, you're still wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Like that is such an interesting arc to do with a character, and like I just like that Rian Johnson kind of thought that through. So let's keep her moving though here, Dan. So then we get into this the first scene with Luke and Rey. It was kind of an interesting scene because the movie was supposed to take place right where the other one started off, but they actually made the choice to have her again take a few steps back and then walk over and hand him the lightsaber again, which I thought was kind of dumb. I think it pretty much took everybody out of the movie because you're like, yeah, we already saw that. Like, I don't know why it didn't just start with her holding the lightsaber out. Because, right. So it was strange that they it was almost like when sitcoms, like, who are trying to buy time, like, they come back from commercial and then they show again what they showed before.
Yeah.
I just thought that was strange. Like, why not just have her, like, exactly where we left off with her holding the lightsaber out and Luke taking it? So yeah. I just thought it just bothered me. It, like, distracted me from the movie.
I think besides the, watching a meant-for-TV sitcom on Hulu or Netflix, the thing that bugged me was the tossing. The tossing.
Oh, yeah.
That's just, for me, that was so much the wrong tone.
Yep.
For Luke. Almost every other character, to me, can have this sort of Joss Whedon-y, quippy, kind of jokes sometimes. But, his whole premise, and this actually came through the rest of the movie, was this very serious, very, sort of desperate character, and to have him just, do that, and that's the first thing that he does, that was probably one of the scenes that irked me a lot.
And the thing is it's not even congruent with his character in this movie, because there's a flippancy to it. Oh, I don't care. But he cares so deeply that he's, shut down, right? I would have rather had him break it. Take the metal hand and break the lightsaber. Or I would have rather had him, throw it into the ocean. Or, give it, throw it at her. Anything would have been better than the flip. That to me, it didn't fit the tone. It just felt like shock for the sake of shock. And it actually kind of pissed me off. I felt angry walking out of that, seeing that scene, and I just felt like it was the wrong, exactly what you said, the wrong tone, wasn't congruent with his character, in this movie, didn't treat the canon with the respect it deserves, and what that item means to people, in their life. It just felt like he was just going for a cheap shock, like a jackass moment or something.
Well, yeah, so it's for that, kind of laugh track bit that was, very, very even clip of jokes throughout the movie. And I think that was it's been, 5 minutes since we've had a joke. It's time to have a joke now. Right. It hadn't even been, 5 minutes. That's the first thing he ever does. But, yeah, I think I have a little bit more feelings, too, on the island in general. Mm-hmm. And the, I might be skipping ahead here, but even the nuns that are nuns or the caretakers of the island, how were they there if it's the most hard place to find that we spent 2.5 hours finding in the last movie? Um, they just probably shouldn't have been there.
Mm-hmm. Right, and the part of that is that they just appear. Right, it was like Luke was there by himself on this tiny island, and all of a sudden there's like 14 of these nuns, and they've been there the whole time, and nobody's noticed. And like,
well,
what?
Not even nobody's noticed. Actually, so because I rewatched Force Awakens, there is Rey goes to the huts,
mm-hmm.
and there's nobody there.
Right.
There's no signs of life.
Right.
They're empty.
Right. So it just felt like they just appeared, and it was another one of those like little strange loose ends that I was like, why? And then like I get the comedy part of that it's kind of like Rey is a nuisance to them and everything, but I was also like, why are we spending time on that when we could be spending time on some of the things I'm going to get to later in our review? So, yeah. All right. Yeah. So let's so Luke and Rey. Luke throws a lightsaber, and then there's some interesting thing where they kind of have a Luke doing mundane tasks kind of part where he goes around and he gets the milk, and I thought that was cool, kind of a cool nod. The fact that like in the original Star Wars, Luke drinks like blue milk,
mm-hmm.
and so he's like milking the sea cow monsters and getting the milk. I really like that part with the stick, because again, you know where he like stabs the stick into the ground and jumps from mountain to mountain.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Because that was something that was finally like, oh, he's a Jedi. He wouldn't be afraid of doing that.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what it made me think in my mind, is I was like, oh, sweet, he can kind of like, if he's having trouble, he can kind of force direct himself, you know?
Sure. I think that was meant to be so you know in Empire when Yoda is like crazy Yoda still, and he's just like not paying attention to Luke or whatever. I think that's what they were going for.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it hit the same tone, because like we already know who Luke is. It's not like we're not like surprised by who Luke is. But yeah, I think that this scene was a little drawn out for my tastes.
Right.
But it did at least give a little bit more feeling to the island, right? Because like otherwise it'd be like, well, you just sat. Did you just stand on an island looking at a cliff for like 20 years?
Well, and there was another scene where they showed the X-Wing in the background in the water.
Yeah.
And of course, like as a Star Wars fan, what it immediately brings to mind is that's going to be sweet when Luke raises it out of the water, right? Which never delivers. And
it's the Rian Johnson Star Wars.
If he would have later in the scene with Yoda, if he would have raised the ship with Yoda, that would have been such a great scene. You know, where Yoda would have raised the ship, and that would have been like his reminder. But again, it was just like this trail that led to nowhere. And that was like, yeah, so I agree with you. So anyway, so then Luke and Rey kind of leave it at standstill, and then we jump back to General Hux and kind of his meeting with Snoke. So Snoke appears on the hologram, starts yelling at him. He's like, no, listen, it's not my fault. Snoke does the Vader-esque thing of like force slamming him to the ground, but via hologram, which of course is very Vader-esque, like choking somebody through the like the teleprompter, or what I don't know you call it, like the hologram.
Where was physically Snoke during that? Because most of the time you have to be somewhat proximal to like body slam somebody with the Force. Was like Snoke just upstairs and didn't feel like coming down? Or
yeah, I don't know. Maybe I don't know. Maybe you just have to have like eyes on them. You know what I mean? It's like if you can visually see where they are, you can use the Force on them.
I guess that's established later that they can do the because I remember in the original trilogy they had the like you could do like Leia or like Luke, right? They like that was the thing that was established. So I guess it's okay.
Maybe they're going like with the like with the Force space is like folded or something kind of idea. So Hux is basically like, hey, listen, we've got them on a string, which as an audience member is your first like J.J. Abrams mystery box. J.J. Abrams has this idea that like all movies should have a mystery box, and you should like be wondering about it throughout the movie, and then the big unveiling is what was in the mystery box. So that's our first J.J. Abrams like mystery box, where you're going that we have them on a string. What does that mean? And so you're kind of in the back of your mind while you're watching the movie, you're kind of mulling that over, waiting to find out what that is. And I like that metaphor in it because I thought it came through really cool, like with what actually ends up happening with them being able to track them through hyperspace. I thought that was nice. And ultimately, Hux gets kind of saved. He doesn't die because, Snoke doesn't kill him because as he walks out of the meeting with Snoke, he's like, "We have them on the string." Ha 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 ha. Like, so.
So that was after. I swear I've seen this movie.
So Snoke slams him to the ground, and then when Kylo Ren is going up to see Snoke, General Hux is walking out. And you hear Snoke being like, that's what you meant by "we have them on a string." And so Hux is kind of like a proud peacock as he's walking out of there, like, I did something right,
And then people didn't just make fun of my mom.
Right. So Kylo goes in there and basically gets called out on being weak by Snoke. And Snoke says things like, you're weak, you're a little boy in a helmet, like basically just dressing him down, which I loved. Like, I loved that scene. I don't know what you thought, Dan.
I'm totally on board. I think I honestly now am of the opinion of, like, Kylo Ren might actually be the best villain in Star Wars.
Right.
Because of his, because he's a deconstruction of actually 30-something geeks and Star Wars fans.
Right.
Probably that's part of it. But that it is like he's not well liked. He's not well thought of. He experienced a very particular thing to only him. He doesn't have like a widely applicable, at least in my mind, like tropish story, I guess. And it's sort of like exploring his face. It's really cool. And I love that Snoke doesn't like him, and that he just thinks he's a dork. And it's just like, you got a helmet. That's pretty cool, buddy.
Yeah.
Did he make it? Did he make the helmet?
Yeah, I think he did make the helmet. So
I love that idea.
Right, so he basically yells at him, and then Kylo walks out and, in his little kid tantrum kind of way, smashes the helmet. It falls to the ground. We get a nice close-up of the broken helmet on the ground, which, kind of sets the tone for he's letting go of the past a little bit, which comes to be a theme with his character kind of going forward. So I like that whole scene. Pretty much everything with Snoke I enjoyed. I thought they did a really nice job with that character. He was like pure evil. He was menacing. They made him powerful, but they didn't make him so powerful that it was like the Force Unleashed. Where people are pulling down like Imperial walkers or Imperial fighters or anything from the sky. Like, I liked how they made him powerful enough where he was like, whoa, he's like almost a little bit beyond Vader. It almost seems like he is, but you weren't quite sure. So, yeah.
I think even Snoke's whole arc though is again be like, this isn't going to be what you think it's going to be. So I was kind of expecting this to be, Snoke is way more powerful than Rey, and when they're all in the same room together eventually, that it would just sort of end the same way that Vader and the Emperor and Luke did, which was I just thought it was going to go the same way, and they put it in the trailer that I should not have expected that.
Right.
And it's sort of interesting though that this movie sort of ended Snoke's arc too.
And that's what I hated. I mean, I hated that. Later on, Snoke dies by the hand of Kylo Ren. And we have no idea who he is. We have no background on where he came from. There's all these little pieces that have come out of the extended universe where he is older than the Emperor and has been around for thousands of years and all this other stuff that, to me, just they didn't do anything with. I have no idea who this guy is, and now he's gone. So the only way that we're going to be able to hear about him again is if they do some kind of flashback to when Kylo Ren is a kid or something. Which, I don't know, involves making a child Adam Driver again, which it's just kind of a strange thing to do, and I don't fully understand that totally. But yeah, I really hated that because if you a lot of the speculation for this movie has specifically been on who is Snoke. Is Snoke Darth Plagueis? Is Snoke one of the Emperor's clones? Is Snoke like some other kind of Sith from the distant galaxies? How come Snoke has like a ring that has like metal made from Mustafar, which is where Vader's like castle was? Like, there's all these like loose ends that just dead.
What is your opinion? I guess this is going to be kind of. What is your general opinion of the extended universe before it was decanonized and turned into life?
I think there's parts that I really, really like about it, and there's parts that are terrible. So the things that I like are when they fill in backstory on things, especially like Old Republic stuff that like kind of has those echoes that go forward. Like there's a trilogy on Darth Bane, who is kind of the guy who established the rule of two with the Sith, that I really love because it has all these parallels to why the Emperor is the way he is, why there's only two Sith. Like, you understand it a lot better, like why the Jedi are the way they are. I like stuff like that. But then there's other things where they, like, you know, when they make Luke go to the dark side, it's just kind of like, no, Luke doesn't go to the dark side. Like, oh, but he was doing it to kind of like go undercover, and it's like, no, Luke doesn't go to the dark side. Like, that's like his thing. You know? Like, he just...
That is specifically his one thing, is not doing that.
Right, or they try to make super overpowered characters in the extended universe who are like, oh, Darth Vader had this secret apprentice who... It's like, no, Darth Vader didn't have a secret apprentice. Like, he didn't... He was very unhappy and in pain all the time, and, like, that was it. Like, he didn't have these secret plans to overthrow the Emperor. He, like, felt like he deserved a subsidiary position in life because of, like, killing his wife, you know?
Right.
So I don't like stuff that messes with the current story. Like, you have to do a good job fitting it in, you know? You can't just be like, oh, yeah, and there's all this other stuff, but it all fixed itself before... You know, like, Rogue One did an excellent job of that. Like, they tied in stuff really, really well. It wrapped into the movies really well. They didn't try to do anything like, oh, there was a secret Jedi alive this whole time, and nobody ever knew about him. Right? There weren't any Jedi. You know, because there weren't.
All that to say, though, I mean, so this is not the Rogue One review, but we're headed there. Which is, you know, that's sort of the hardest part of doing either like an in-between movie or a prequel, which is like, I know where these characters go.
Right.
And I know what like is or isn't them. And I think that was kind of the more fun thing with Snoke, was the like, okay, so they kind of tossed away like all of the fan theoriness. But the cool thing about it was that like, well, this is the chasms that are left open that get filled in over years of your imagination and stuff like that. So I get what you're saying, which was like, yeah, you know, again, this was all this like Force Awakens set up like a billion things, and then Last Jedi was like, whichever ones I liked, and then all the rest of them were just gone. You know what I mean?
Right. So I think it would be great if we got like a Snoke movie, but I don't know if we will. You know what I mean? I think we're gonna get like the movies that make the most money. You know what I mean? Not that fill in the most canon. So.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that definitely part of the Disney machine is going to be what makes more cash. I think I would agree. I think that's the least controversial thing we can say.
Right. Okay, so let's get back on track here, Dan. So we're going to go back to basically the nostalgia scene, which is Luke going onto the Millennium Falcon. And so Luke gets on the Millennium Falcon, R2-D2 plays the Leia scene, he goes, that's a cheap move. You know, he takes the dice down from, which was an interesting thing. Of all the stuff in the Millennium Falcon, I don't really remember the dice. Do you?
I gotta be honest, I watched a lot of Star Wars as a kid. I don't think the dice were a thing that I remembered. Yeah, it's not on the list. I knew what they were supposed to represent because Han Solo is like roguish and he's like paradise. I don't know how else to play. It's like a risk, I don't know, something, whatever. It seemed like it represented his character, so I guess I didn't have like too much mental friction with it. But,
so I don't know. It just was like another one of those odd choices. Like, okay, if there isn't an item, don't have an item. You know, you don't need to force an item by finding something random, you know?
Yeah, and I think that was definitely on the list of random things. It just kind of didn't fit or didn't work. We were just like, that was great. That's what we're doing.
Or like make it his vest, or make it his blaster, or make it his belt, or one of the things that's like iconic about him, you know?
He didn't have his blaster in Force Awakens, right?
Right, but I'm saying like you could have brought it back in some way, or
No,
you,
right.
right.
That's what I'm saying. It's like hidden somewhere because we don't have enough callbacks in this movie.
Right.
So, we just
So,
need to have.
but that was one of the parts that I actually, when R2D2 played the video, which was like pretty neat, and then when Luke was like, "That's a cheap move," like I thought that I laughed at that. I thought that was good humor, and like I thought it fit the tone of the movie really well, and kind of showed that Luke wasn't completely hard. You know what I mean?
I do think that that was a cheap move fits a lot more into like the old farm boy, like Luke. Where it's just like, oh, come on. Luke is like, oh, geez.
Yeah, like the power converters.
Yeah, oh, man.
Yeah.
I think that was better. I think that was definitely like the best version of the, oh, man, this is a cheap move.
Yeah.
But now it's like, 60 or 100. I have no idea. How old is he? He's got to be.
Probably like 18. So.
Sure.
Okay, so then we have another funny scene kind of immediately following that, or with that scene, which is Chewbacca eating the porg. And, like, the porg is just... And I like that scene because it wasn't very Disney. Because it had the death of a cute creature. And, like, the sad eyes was, like... There was, like, a morbid cuteness to that scene. Which I don't think I can even think of another movie that's ever done something like that, where it's, like, really, really morbid, but then really, really cute. What I think would have put it over the top is if Chewbacca would have literally just bit into it.
Because it's looking.
Which I just thought would have been funny, but they didn't take it that far. They just stopped it at like, oh, I can't do this, you know?
Yeah. I guess my only real comment on Ford was I'm glad that it wasn't a single character.
Yeah.
And then I'm glad that it was actually like a nuisance thing.
Right.
That was more fun. From the trailer I was really worried that I was like, oh, this is like Jar Jar Binks or like another droid or something where it's like, yes, you exist.
But the only thing I didn't like with that is I felt like they just wasted Chewbacca in this movie. You know, it's like you got Chewbacca, who's basically his life partner, was murdered at the end of the last movie, and this movie, rather than like having him get some like sweet revenge, or having him like lose his shit on some stormtroopers and rip off some arms, right? Instead, what they had him do was just like play with the cutest thing on like this planet while he sat in the Millennium Falcon for like days and days and days. And I was like, why would you basically like neuter Chewbacca in this movie? Like, he just saw his best friend be murdered. Give him his moment of like rage. You know, have him punch Kylo Ren in the face or something. You know what I mean? Like something that like gives him a moment. You know?
Yeah. No. Is this back on the this isn't going to go the way that you think it is? You know, is that just is that the theme? Is that is that too M. Night Shyamalan? Where specifically he will never Chewbacca is now sworn off all violence. He will never arms ever again.
He's Gandhi Chewbacca.
Yeah, is that a new interesting Chewbacca? I don't know. I think it's.
I feel like that it's not going to go the way you think. It's just like an unfalsifiable way of justifying anything in a movie that you want to do that's terrible.
Oh, for sure. It is like the ultimate curse of the auteur theory of anything, right? Which is if something's terrible, but it's like very auteur, it's like, well, that was their intention. So you just didn't get it.
You didn't get it, yeah.
Yeah, it's like all of Radiohead's
discography.
If you don't like it, you just didn't get it.
You didn't understand it. So after that, we've got Kylo's fleet attacks Leia when they come out of hyperspace, and Kylo has this moment of, he's just kind of raging still from the helmet breaking moment. His little modified TIE fighter flies in and does this very Death Star-esque maneuver where he kind of like flies into the ship, but then kind of makes the decision to not pull the trigger to kill his mom. which then 2 or 3 seconds later, a bunch of other people kill his mom. But then they don't. And I thought that was... I would have liked to see a little bit more time. Like, I would have liked to see Kylo decide not to pull the trigger and then give it, like, a couple more minutes or just, like, cut to a different scene and, like, have Kylo see it happen and, like, have a reaction to it. You know what I mean? Like, not just like, I didn't do it. Oh, that guy got it. All right, later.
Yeah, that was maybe a little careless, I think. Or just mishandled about, like, how much gravity that should or shouldn't have. I mean, because in The Force Awakens, when Kylo Ren and Han Solo are on like, the bridge, and it's like, well, it's going to die now. You're just like, when is he going to die? It's going to happen.
Right.
That scene did have the appropriate sort of gravity to it. And yeah, I think lots of your point is that he decides not to do it. There should have been a consequence for that. There should have been sort of like a tug, like dark and light in that moment, a little bit more than was given, a little bit more. Even the illusion of time. Even if like in wall time on the movie, it wouldn't have gone much further. I think that could have been a little bit more carefully handled.
So I think what he was going for was kind of like almost like a lie of omission, you know, or like all it takes for evil to triumph is for like good men to do nothing kind of thing. Like it wasn't that he killed his mom, but he didn't do anything to prevent it. So that was kind of like just as bad. But I feel like it didn't quite fit. And the fact that I think Adam Driver a lot of times just has that blank look on his face, you know, where he just kind of does like the thing. You're right. And I think you need an emotive actor to pull that scene off. Like, you need him to, like, see his mom be killed and then be like, ooh, you know, or something, like, have a reaction to it. Not just like,
Yeah, and well, so like the way when he kills Han Solo, he actually is very flat in that scene, but it's actually to the benefit of that scene.
Right.
Because it's his resolve, right? It's just like, this is what I have to do, and he's like, thank you, Father.
Right.
And then gets him. But yeah, I think even similarly too, after Leia like dies,
yeah,
that wasn't even given enough time to sort of feel what that would mean.
Right.
And so that was sort of like just, oh yeah, this happened, but it didn't really, and you revert back to like whatever, and yeah, you just like, there was an interesting space to play with, but they're like, we have like a 2 hour and 45-minute movie, so never mind. Just kidding.
Right. So then we get Carrie Fisher, Leia floating off into space, and then you kind of looking dead, and then using the Force. And the internet collectively has called this like the Mary Poppins or like Leia Poppins moment, where she kind of like flies back to the ship. Dan, you said Carrie Fisher was your favorite part of the movie, or one of your favorite parts. What did you think about that scene?
Yeah, so I mean that was kind of part of it, right? Which was, she's the only one really feeling what's going on, and I don't think that you killed her there. I think what you really should have done, like if I were going to be like, how would you fix this? Which I'm not doing, but like if you were to do it, like, you just don't kill Leia there. If the consequence is that she's not dead, and that Kylo Ren had this like, oh, you know, I'm not going to do it moment, then just commit to that. I mean, really, that's good enough, right? That would have been, you know, I don't do it, and then a bunch of things get really messed up, and Leia has to deal with more death because her son's sort of live a mission kind of type thing. All of the stuff that we would have gotten out of that scene without without Leia Poppins, I didn't see that was a thing that people are calling it. So.
Yeah.
This is me reacting to Leia Poppins, and I think that particular scene for her was carelessly done. Probably that was the only part that I didn't like, because then the rest of the movie, even when she comes back, it's not like a "and now I've died" or "and now I've used the Force" or "and now," she didn't. There's no change up there.
Right. And I mean, the other thing is, like, I think that would have been a cool moment to have Luke do something. Like, why not have Luke pull her back to the ship or save her in some way? You know, like, kind of like Luke all of a sudden gets drawn back in for a second or something. Like, I did think I just thought it was odd. I mean, I was excited to see her use the Force, but again, like, it didn't go anywhere. Like,
yeah, she could have easier not used the Force.
Right.
And, like, yeah, and I think those are like the damning scenes in a lot of really high level movies or high fantasy movies released recently. It's like you didn't need that.
Right. How about this for the scene there? How about Poe saves her in some way? Wouldn't that have been like way better? And like Poe is panicking and freaking out, you know, and like
finally gets what it means for like a bunch of people to die.
Right. Like that could have been like way better. But like the other thing, and this is just a pure, and this is where Dan, you being like a hard science man, is going to be helpful. It just isn't how the Force works. You can't pull yourself. Like, we've never seen that before. Nobody's ever pulled. Like, if anything, the ship would get pulled to her. Like, it's strange. It was just a strange use of the Force, which is always a pushing action, you know? So it was strange to see her pull herself. Like, we've seen, like, Anakin pull a pear to himself across a table or something. But, like,
Saber.
It would be weird for, like, Natalie Portman to be sitting there and for Anakin to pull himself toward her, using her as, like, a stationary object. Especially in space, right? Where, like, potentially, if you pulled that, like, both should just, like, kind of move.
Yeah, and I think that's more just selling the, like, you probably shouldn't have done it. If it like, feels that weird, maybe just, like, maybe don't do it. But no, yeah, I think you really do, if you want to do, like, Leia dies, which, like, obviously understanding, and they didn't know this during filming, Fisher was going to die, you know, that just seemed like a really haphazard way to do it, I think. Yeah. And I think that there's plenty that could have been done in that space, and probably plenty that will be done in that space in Episode 9. Should be a little careful.
Well, anyway, so, I mean, she doesn't die, clearly. She, like, lives through the scene, lives through the movie, which, again, just has these really ugly, these ugly real-life parallels, that she died in real life, but lived in the movie. So now, they're kind of, it just made you, again, it pulled you out of the movie. Like, you know, like, instead of thinking about the movie, I'm thinking about, well, how are they going to do this in the next movie? Because it was weird to tease her death. It didn't quite cross into distasteful. It just crossed into, like, awkwardness.
Yeah, I think that's where I've settled on that feeling, which is just awkwardly mismanaged.
Right.
It was like it was a powerful thing, and you have to have a responsibility that comes with that. Yeah. So I'm sure we'll get some scene that's important in 9 that like revisits it, or maybe we won't because this isn't going to go the way that I think it is. But
so anyway, so back to the way things should have gone, or I don't know. It's hilarious. So okay, so then they go into hyperspace, and and hold on, we skipped something. Admiral Ackbar dies during that scene. People didn't even realize it. Like, Dan, I see you reacting to it right now. Yeah, he was also on that bridge and died.
It was a big space battle scene. We went over.
I just feel like they could have done a little bit more. Like, this character that everybody loves, like, and by God, he should have died in a trap. Can we all agree with that?
Well, yeah. I mean, or you know, maybe doesn't because he sees them coming. He just knows that's all right. But yeah, I didn't even know he died. It was another big space battle kind of thing. And I think the only part I paid attention to was the part where Leia's in space, because it's not as big and spacey and not as flashy lights, and like I got less distracted.
Right. So at that point, they get into hyperspace and they go on, and then it's at that point that they were already in hyperspace, and at that point they actually realized that there was no possibility of like getting away, because they realized they could be tracked now via hyperspace. And so that's this kind of bit. Then we finally get that mystery box opened up where we start to understand that there is something weird is going on where you can get tracked via hyperspace. The string thing makes sense. And at the same time, then we get this Vice Admiral Haldo takes over. So she's the woman with the purple hair, and she ends up taking over and basically, again, lays into Poe right off the bat. And so, what did you think about her as a character?
I thought that it would have been pretty appropriate to have Jeff Goldblum on the spaceship saying, "Let's go faster." She's Ellie from Jurassic Park. Holdo is the same actress, right? As
Yep.
Ellie. No, not Ellie. Anyway, no, I think you didn't need her. I think that could have just been Leia not dead or not in a coma.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I just, like, her character is good and probably led to the single most badass thing that happened in the movie, which is the whole light speed.
Right.
It was too quick. So many people were reacting, and I know that I didn't go to what was it like in the movie when you went? Because like there were a couple of people in the audience that were like talking a little bit, so all I could hear was like the trailed off ends of people's conversations, because it was like a big loud space battle, and somebody's like, "What happened? I don't know."
Right.
It's just a person.
Yeah, I would say that we had. I mean, people reacted pretty epically. I mean, people were like, "Oh, like it was stunning," you know. And I love that scene. I mean, that scene was perfect. It was something that was like very. It's something we've all thought of. Like if you've ever watched Star Trek, and everyone's thought that. Like, what if they ran into something? What would happen? And it totally played on that idea, and I really liked that a lot. And I liked that it didn't like make the ship just blow up. I like that there was like the light in between the ship still in a weird way, like the ship kept going even though it was damaged or something. I just really liked how it visually looked. I liked how they filmed it, or they didn't film it because there's nothing to film, but how they made the camera view like from below it, almost like it was an eclipse or something. Yeah, that was like probably my favorite part of the movie.
Yeah, whichever team of 50 or 60 or 1,000 animators worked on that, if you somehow watch this, holy cow, great job. That was super cool. That was super cool.
Right. So let's get into, Dan, let's get into the this part, which I'm really curious what your thoughts are, which is the whole Finn Rose side story. I'm going to call it a side story with the casino planet. So Finn wakes up having just had this battle with Kylo Ren, where he had his back slit open. He kind of walks out. He's got the like kind of scuba-looking suit that's like shooting water everywhere. He's kind of confused. Him and Poe reunite for a second, and then he's trying to escape the ship because he has Rey's like tracker on his wrist, and so he's trying to get out of there. And then that's when we meet Rose, who like basically tasers him. Don't tase me, bro. He gets tased. And they go on this kind of side adventure where they have to go find the code breaker. That scene started with one of my least favorite parts of the movie, which is when they showed, what's her name? Maz Kanata. She's like, she's the one from The Force Awakens who's like, I'm not a Jedi, but I know the Force. And, like, they have her in the hologram, like, having some kind of, like, a Counter-Strike, like, shootout while she's, like, giving advice to people.
Yeah. The whole kind of sequence just this is probably the part of the movie, if we were going to go to like the editing room and just say like, look, not that,
Mm-hmm.
just don't do that.
Right.
Probably would make perfect sense. Cut the movie's runtime down by about a half hour. I didn't feel a good attachment to really anything that happened here. I didn't like the Breaker, Benicio del Toro.
Yeah, DJ.
Okay.
Yeah, his name in the movie is DJ. DJ.
Okay, because I saw that in the like show notes that it was DJ,
Mm-hmm.
and I thought that you like it was like he's like a DJ, and like at some point in time, I was like, it could have happened. It was weird. But yeah, that especially the way that they handled kind of Maz, which was sort of like a mystic slumlordish kind of person in Force Awakens.
Right.
Yeah, that didn't make any sense. And
Like I liked how they made her find like she told them the piece of advice that would ultimately get them to the code breaker, who was DJ. Right? Because like I guess my interpretation was that the guy at the roulette table with the thing on his vest wasn't actually the code breaker. They just needed to get there to have that moment where they would get arrested so that they would meet DJ. So it was like she was kind of using the Force, like, hey, I'm going to make you go to this direction. But so I like that. But why did they have to have her in a space shooting battle? Like, that's so not her character, and didn't make it was so dumb, and it didn't make any sense.
I think this is probably one of the things, and this is probably one of the things that will recur and may come up in a comment section down below. But it's like that was probably handled in the extended or in the books or something, or the novelization,
Right.
where it's like, no, Maz is like actually this great fighter. She's like always she's settling trade. Just I don't know whatever she's doing. She has jetpacks, and this is like common knowledge. But in the movies, it's like she just ran like a bar city.
Right.
She ran Cantina. She ran the new Cantina.
Right.
Maybe she shoots things sometimes, but like, yeah, no jetpacks, no wild adventure kind of stuff.
Right, like she's the good Jabba the Hutt.
Oh yeah, that fits.
Yeah, like that's what she is. Like, right? She's like the boss of the slums, but she's good, right? Like, it just I don't know. It just that was so strange to me that they did that with her, and I just thought like, oh, okay, you just had to like shoehorn her into the movie, and you couldn't just have her like talk. Like, it could have been so cool if she would have just said some kind of like weird riddle to them, you know, and you'd have been
kind of like what she was doing a lot in the Force Awakens.
Right, and like that would have been cool enough. We don't need her having a space battle. Like, anyway.
I think I figured it out though. You can't sell toys of good advice.
That's
you
true.
Can't sell toys of Maz and a jetpack with guns.
That's true. So, okay, so then we've got this whole casino side plot. With you find out that these people are so wealthy because they actually sell. They sell arms to both the Resistance and to the First Order, which I don't know. I mean, it's kind of like I get what they're going for. They're kind of going like these are the 1%, like these are the evil people, right? And like we need to burn them all down. And it's supposed to be this like feeling of the proletariat rising up against the bourgeoisie, but it really had nothing to do with Star Wars. Like, wealth and, like, people being... Like, the way people are wealthy in Star Wars is Jabba the Hutt. Like, you're wealthy in, like, a slumlord kind of way. You're not, like, wealthy like I have a monocle and I, like, walk around... Like, that doesn't fit the theme of Star Wars.
Yeah, I don't think that... and I think this was probably a big failing of the prequel trilogies, right? Which was, like, this ideas about class...
Right.
Which like didn't come up. He's like, is Han Solo's like scoundrelhood? They never talk about he was a smuggler, and that's like somehow a bad profession. Right. They just talk he's a scoundrel, right?
Right.
But like, it's never like a position of power, or like Luke is like a moisture farmer. right?
Right.
Like classist things aren't really sort of in the purview of Star Wars, and I think this is just like the wrong. This is a franchise ill-equipped to handle it.
Right. Because the oppressor is the Empire. Right? And then everyone else is the oppressed. Like it's not like there's this rich class. And then from there it kind of just turned into this like social justice warrior like montage of like animal rights and like being a caring person and like gambling is bad and all this stuff, and it just was really strange to me. Like they tried to like shoehorn all these like kind of like what I think they would perceive as like popular with young liberal people into the movie. Like Rose being so like, oh, we have to save these animals. And the worst part to me was when they were like, oh, you think it's those horse races, they look fun, huh? Well, why don't you look a little closer? You know, and they zoom in and they're getting whipped or whatever. I was like, oh, okay, did PETA like pay for this part of the movie?
Right, and I think like if this is like a Star Trek movie, yeah, I mean, you know what? Well, modern Star Trek is not intelligent enough to do that. Modern Star Trek is basically Star Wars now.
Right.
This just doesn't. It always kind of falls flat in Star Wars. Star Wars is like adventure kid. And I guess you can get some of that in good movies or like thoughtful fantasy, but like I guess Star Wars is not that thoughtful.
Mm-hmm.
Star Wars is an adventure. It's basically magic but with space, and it should be like a plucky nobody saving the world by being a good person.
Right.
I think that does mesh with the we should just save animals, we should gamble on things, we shouldn't do these things. But it was just kind of ham-fisted. I think the only thing that was cool that came out of it was like the little kid at the end.
Yeah, the little kid was cool. I also liked the scene where the little fat robot was putting coins into BB-8.
Oh, like Goblin Guy? Yeah.
Yeah, and he was like treating him like a slot machine, and then BB-8 like spat the coins out later. That was just kind of funny, but again, like if that would have been a separate Star Wars movie, I would have probably been okay with it. But because it was like just kind of like you said, ham-fisted into the movie, I just found myself being like, what is going on? And then the thing that really killed it for me, Dan, is that inevitably their mission fails. And it doesn't fail because DJ betrays them like Lando. Like Lando betrayed them to Darth Vader before they even got there, so they never had a chance to begin with. It fails because the second they walk into the room, all of a sudden there's just all these troopers there to stop them. And like it's Phasma and all that. But like Phasma hasn't been in the movie. So why didn't they have DJ betray them like earlier? Like why did DJ betray them after they got caught? Like that was weird to me.
It's like way too late.
Right, like they're already screwed. So
yeah. That particular scene and also like the use of Phasma in general, and is this even like we have a great actress behind the mask of Phasma, but they're not doing much with it. That's another point for a little bit later. But yeah, the the main part from what I gathered from this scene was it was already a failure before it started. You're saying, but it's that is the on theme for the movie, but it also just extended the movie, and we didn't. It was not needed. You could have done this out. You could have gotten to this conclusion, and I know that probably the ultimate thing would be like, well, you could just do the whole movie without doing the movie, and I don't want to go down there because I think there were parts that were really necessary, and it's fun to play in that space. But yeah, you just really didn't need DJ. You didn't need the betrayal. You didn't need ham-fisted scenes about things that Star Wars is kind of ill-equipped to.
So you know how like the random casino guards were the ones that were like chasing Finn and Rose around? Why not like at the end when they're racing when they're running away with the horses? Why not instead make that Phasma why not have Phasma see Finn take off from the ship, like to go on this like special mission, and somehow she knows, like she's like has a tracker on him or something like that, and then she's actually the one in pursuit.
I've seen this before. Rhymes with Shmoba Bet.
Exactly.
Just because that's why Boba Fett was cool, right? He's this sort of. I mean, he got a lot of guff anyways before about being this like didn't really actually do that much. But people were like, no, in the extended universe, Mandalorian armor is impenetrable, sabers or something. I don't know. He usually has cool armor. It's kind of cool looking. And so I think Phasma's also got cool looking armor going for her.
Right.
So they probably should use that.
Right. It's just that. I mean, then she's in the movie too. She doesn't just appear later on, like, and then has like. It's almost like they had to break her mask later on just to be like, okay, let's give her some screen time. Yeah. Like, I don't know. That was so strange.
It's Game of Thrones. Like, check it out.
Yeah.
We paid a lot more money than we needed to for that.
Right.
Yeah, she's a great actress, but like, yeah, it's totally. I don't get it. I mean, who played Boba Fett?
Well, some guy who was apparently cloned or whatever. I don't know. Like,
but like before the madness happened.
Yeah, before all the madness happened. Exactly. So let's keep on moving here. Kylo and Rey. Then they kind of go back to Luke. And Luke kind of has the scene where he's going to teach Rey these 3 lessons. He finally reluctantly agrees to train her. He says, I'm going to teach you 3 lessons for why the Jedi have to end. They have that kind of funny scene where it's like, reach out. She reaches out and like Luke slaps her hand. He's like, is that the Force? And like that was pretty funny, I thought. I don't know if you like that, Dan, but I thought it was kind of funny.
Yeah, I like it. I like it now. When I watched the movie, I was like, this is so stupid.
Right.
This is not. But then, like, I'm starting to think back now on, like, go watch Empire. Watch Yoda just screwing with Luke the entire time. It's hilarious. He is just, like, if you know what's going to happen, or like, you know who Yoda is, like, we know who Luke is, right? It's the same deal, right? Like, he can kind of mess with her, and that's fine. The 3 lessons sequence, though, I think it generally was good with it. I mean, I think it reflected enough, it echoed, it rhymed enough with Empire that it was like, oh, this is beneficial, and I do love that Rey just repeats it.
Yeah. What did you love about that?
That she left?
Yeah, like just that it paralleled the previous movies?
So, I mean, sure, yes, that it kind of felt right. Like, that's what a Jedi in training does. If you catch them too late, they'll just go and do impulsive things. Mm-hmm. But it kind of, the one point where he's like, you didn't even try to resist the dark side.
Yeah, that was great.
Yeah, and she just goes headlong, like, nope, I gotta go, gotta save my buddies. Mm-hmm. It's like, oh, crap. Like, this is going to end the way that you think but it's going to be that, but it's going to be like Rey goes bad. And I actually thought for maybe, 10 or 15 minutes during the movie that Rey might go bad. And I think that's why I really liked it, was the I don't know, right? Because in like Return of the Jedi, you have Vader who's like, well, he could be turned good, and you can see him kind of struggling with it. Or you even have the moment where Luke is freaking out on Vader. Right. Because he's like, your sister. Yeah. And then it's like, oh no, I'm going to baseball bat you until you can't stand up anymore. Because you should never talk ill of the Jedi's family, I guess. I was very... It made the scene with Rey and Snoke and
Kylo
and really good, because it seemed like, oh crap, she might fail. And it might be up to Luke in the 3rd movie to turn her back, it could be this whole domino effect. And I thought that was really cool. So I think that's why I liked her leaving. I think that's why I liked her not being good at it. That's what I really loved about the scene. She didn't get it. And the whole thing that I've struggled with for a long time is what does it mean to be a Jedi? And like, I even remember as like a kid being like, well, it's like the Sith have like hand lightning. and that's sweet. And if you can do that, can't you use hand lightning for good?
Right.
Which Yoda does. Well,
Right.
it's just lightning, but okay. I think we're gonna. I'm giving it a pass.
Yeah.
Sure. Like, why wouldn't you do something like that?
Right.
So yeah, I think that's what made me really kind of love that. As a sequence.
Yeah, I like that too. I mean, I like the parallel with Empire. That she's leaving before her training's done, but it's like the opposite. Is she's leaving because he won't train her versus like stay and complete your training. Like I like that. That was like another interesting kind of echo. What did you think about the connection between Rey and Kylo?
Very cool. Great. Good. Like a perfect idea. Because you really can't have those two characters together in the same room. I mean, Rey sort of has this like allergic reaction to him, right? She's just like pissed that he's there. And yeah, I think probably the best instance of that was when she's like, "Can we not right now?" He's like, "I know. I don't want to do this either. I don't know why we're here, but
Right.
like we have to talk right now." Like that they couldn't control it, or they weren't reaching out for each other.
Like they were locked in an elevator together.
Yeah.
Right.
That just gave like a good screen time to characters that you like. Because one of the really fun parts in Return of the Jedi is when Vader and Luke are in like the bridge by themselves. When they're like heading up to the Emperor, and I was like, oh, it's just like two super powerful characters who are not going to kill each other right now.
Right.
And so for those two, you had to like keep them separate. You basically had to keep them in separate locations. But those are really like cool parts to play off of each other. So they actually got some screen time together.
Yeah, and I liked the whole like. There's that line where Kylo, she's like, "You're a monster." He's like, "Yeah, I am a monster." And then I really liked how they did the thing where they showed Kylo's perspective on Luke trying to kill him, and then they showed Luke's perspective, and that was like a cool almost nod to like Anakin in Episode 3 when he's like, "From my perspective, the Jedi are evil," There was like just like that slight facial difference of like being angry versus being surprised, and I really liked how they showed that. But Dan, it did this thing that I think a lot of movies do that really upsets me. And the first movie that I can remember doing it is the Disney version of Alice in Wonderland. Not like the cartoon, like the Johnny Depp one.
Yeah, that's like newer.
Okay, so like when you saw that movie. Wasn't like the general sense like, hey, I thought this was going to be Alice in Wonderland, not like post-apocalyptic Alice in Wonderland, where they all did this in the past. And there's a scene in the movie where they show, like Johnny Depp with Tweedledum and Tweedledee, like having the tea party with Alice, but it's like in the past. It's like Johnny Depp remembering it, and I just remember thinking in my head, that's the movie I want to see, like. Where he's like having the tea party and he's doing Alice in Wonderland. And that was the same feeling I had about that. Was I want to see Luke train Jedi. That's what we've been promised. Like that's all. So why are you giving me a flashback? Like that scene, that Adam Driver thing, that should be the movie. Like that should have been Episode 7. Is like Luke like training these guys. This one turns evil. The Empire Strikes Back moment is that moment. Like that's the end of movie 2. I was like, give me that movie. I want to see that. So anyway, that was like the part that broke my heart the most. Is like all I want to see is Luke being the best Jedi ever, using powers we've never seen before, and training Jedi.
I think, and I think there was a lot to that, right? I think there's a ton to unpack, and I think that's what kind of, for me, made it cool was like probably the J.J. Abrams like mystery box of like what actually happened here. Here's the box, but that's like the frustrating part of the box, right? Is that you don't know what he wants to do with it. But this wasn't Abrams. This was he produced, right?
Yeah, it's Rian Johnson was the director, but Abrams was still the executive producer. So
yeah. I don't know. I guess for me, like seeing the glimpse of Kylo Ren in like the light garb was actually. I think I do a lot better with the here's a small thing, your brain will fill in the rest over the next, like, 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, there were so many things that were in the original Star Wars that were like, whatever. Like Bosk. He's a little lizard guy. All you see really is his feet in The Empire Strikes Back. And he's just a lizard man who's also a bounty hunter.
Right.
But, like, I know a lot about him because I wanted to fill in the details and I like, dug in. So I think that, like, leaving that space open was a good idea. It gave him a lot of room to honestly, like, play with the EU space.
Right. But that's one of those other things that kind of tricks you a little bit, because then there's, like, the whole Knights of Ren thing, and there's 6 Knights of Ren.
Oh, yeah.
But there's also 6. Then Luke says he ran away with 6 of my students. So you assume that the 6 students he ran away with are the Knights of Ren, but then the Knights of Ren don't exist anymore.
Do we know that for sure?
Well, where are they?
I find out next movie episode. Yeah.
You thought the Knights of Ren existed?
Yeah.
This isn't going to go the way you think.
So that has to be the title of the episode. Like, this review is not going to go the way that you think.
Yeah.
If that does or doesn't make it into Final Cut, that's what I need this to be.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I didn't even remember that they were a thing.
Remember in the first movie, there's those flashbacks of, like, Kylos standing with them.
Yeah, I just watched the movie.
Yeah.
I know now, but when I was watching it, I didn't know that. I forgot.
But that's what this movie does to you, is it makes you forget the Force Awakens, and that's bad.
Probably a lot of it, like, we just didn't do anything with it, right? Like, and then some things that they did do with canon set up by the Force Awakens, which was anything set up from the Force Awakens that they actually carried through well.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, they just didn't. I mean, some things, of course, like, and obviously her meeting Luke Skywalker and everything, but, like, there was just, like, I don't know. It just, like, why can't I just see... So, here's what I thought was going to happen, Dan. I thought that the end of the 3rd movie was going to be Luke remaking his temple. Right? Mm-hmm. Like, and then we were finally going to get that feel-good moment of Luke being basically Yoda, trading Padawans. Like, they were like, basically what these series of movies were, is they were delaying that. Because they knew everybody wants to see Luke be a badass, and everybody wants to see Luke, like, running his own temple. Right? But then they killed him. So now that can't happen.
Yeah. Well, so for me, I think that would have been painting it into a corner. Right? Mm. So if you had it's the prequel problem. Again, it's like, if you know where you kind of want to go, and all you have to do is just sort of, like, create an arc to get there, I think that there probably wouldn't have been enough space to play around in. I think that they had to kind of go on this different arc of, like, that happened, you just have to accept that it happened, and now we're going to do... We can't possibly do that, because that's just too small of a box to work in.
Right.
Even though I do want to see it, and maybe that was... we got that with Rey. We got that even with the, like, Yoda-Luke scene, which Yoda being Yoda and doing Yoda things. I've heard a lot of comments that people were really jazzed that he was a puppet. I don't know if I care. I was more weirded out by Yoda saying it's not a page turner. That doesn't seem like a word that, like, Yoda knows.
Yeah.
It's like page turner seems like a very modern word.
Like, nuanced, like, American culture, like, word or something. Yeah, I agree with... I found that a little weird, too. That was another thing. Kind of him being like, oh, the books aren't important. But then later on, we find out Rey stole the books. So again, I was like, what? Like, so I don't know. I'm realizing, Dan, as we're talking about this, I'm liking this movie less and less. I'm, like, talking myself out of liking it.
Oh, man, I'm doing the exact opposite. I'm actually now, I'm like, no, I love that because she didn't know that they weren't important. She hasn't learned that lesson from Master Yoda. But who has learned that lesson? Luke. He got to feel and experience, and, like, so now I'm I'm doing the mental
I
gymnastics.
feel like Yoda was just messing with Luke. He's like, they're not important, but in his head, he's like, they really are important.
That's Yoda. That's just exactly what Yoda exists to do. I mean, we've been waiting, Jedi Force? We've been waiting 2 movies to see Yoda just screw with again.
Hey, on a totally different note, just really quick, did you think that the Kylo Ren shirtless scene was a little weird?
Yes.
Did his body kind of look weird to you?
He's way too strong. Is that like...
He like looked too wide or something. I don't know. It was like I don't know. He reminded me of like a 1920s strong man. Like
yeah. I think that was the second time in the movie that I legitimately I laughed, and I don't know if many other people did.
Yeah.
So it's just like because when Ray's just like, can you just put a shirt on, something. It's weirding me out, and she just said the thing that I was thinking. It was just like, did we need him to not have a shirt on? I mean, it's fine. I know he worked very hard. Adam Driver's in excellent shape, and I love the way that he duels. It's all cool. But yeah, it was just kind of like, I don't know. I think that's probably the only other scene that made me kind of chuckle. Like,
it was just
in the middle of the movie.
It was just strange. I don't know. But anyway, okay. So let's get into the good stuff here. So Rey, we're gonna get into the scene with Rey eventually going up and fighting Snoke and all that good stuff. But Rey has this vision down in she's meditating, and she goes down into the darkness, and she goes into this infinite mirror world with the glass, where she thinks she's gonna find out who her parents are, but she doesn't. What did you think about that as like the going kind of her journey into the darkness?
So you probably could go one of 2 ways, right? You either go with the like way too strong callback, and she fights a person in some sort of cavern in the wilderness and realizes something bad. But the way that they did go, which was like it's just infinite reflections and it's just yourself and there's nothing here. There's nothing for you to find. It was actually probably my lore-wise favorite arc from this story, which is, and I hope they stick to this and not just that she's nobody.
Right.
And I really at the outset of Force Awakens, I was like, oh, please be nobody, please be nobody. Like I have had it with like the idea that it like the Anakin plot of like you are the chosen one.
Yeah.
And there's like special Skywalker blood or something that does not fit with what like what Star Wars is to me.
Right.
And I understand that like yes, Luke is the son of Darth Vader. Like yes, he does actually come from like this royal lineage, and yeah, there is like this sort of family connection to it. But I mean, like, think about the fact that, like, in the Old Republic, there were thousands of Jedi, or, like, so many, and they're not all Skywalkers. They're not all Nobis, right? Somehow, some other people can use the Force, and it's, like, through meditation. Like, who's Yoda's kid?
Mm-hmm.
Who cares?
Right.
Like, who's Yoda's parent?
Right.
Who's Yoda's dad or mom? Like, nobody cares. It's not important. The thing that's is like the dedication to the Jedi religion, the like experiencing the Force and using it.
So for you like your Metachlorians like randomly sampled.
I love it. I would love just like an even bell curve of midichlorian, like whatever. I'm good. I'm even good with like the Watto is resistant to, like, there are some species where it's just like doesn't work.
Yeah.
I'm not good with the sort of subtext of his character that they represent sort of ethnically or racially, but I'm totally okay with the fact that there are sentient species or sapient species that are like immune to the Force. I think that's like Java too.
Right. Yeah, I think I like that too. Maybe not like total. They're immune to the Jedi mind tricks, which obviously got taken to a whole nother level in this movie. Like if they were playing Skyrim, they went really into one general area. Like they put all their skill points into the Jedi mind tricks. They didn't really care about some of the other Jedi stuff. They went full on. They were going to make their character like psychic powered.
You really liked how like Poe was doing kind of interesting things with the X-Wing. What did you think about some of the new Force things that were done?
Well, here's let me start here. Let's just jump because let's just skip her for time's sake. Let's skip to the scene where Kylo and Rey and Snoke are in the room.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things I really loved is how they made the fighting very like brutal and blunt. And, like, they were, like, hacking at each other. And, like, they even did that thing where, like, Rey, when she showed her practicing, she was just kind of taking, like, wild swings. And then when she was fighting the Imperial Guards, did that exact thing where she was, like, taking those wild swings. And I thought that was so much better. I mean, it makes sense because Anakin and Obi-Wan would be have learned across their entire life how to, like, fight with these with lightsabers. And I really like how Obi-Wan Kenobi and Darth Vader are, like, really old. So they fight, like, very slow. And they, like, found a way to make it in between. And I really like, there was, like, the one little... I love when they do little subtle things with the Force. There's a scene in Revenge of the Sith where it's Grievous is fighting Obi-Wan Kenobi with the multiple lightsabers, you know? And there's this awesome moment where Obi-Wan Kenobi blocks one of the lightsabers with the Force. And it's really, it's really subtle. It's like he's coming at him like with a million lightsabers like this, and Obi-Wan's just like, do. And there's this really subtle scene where he goes, do, and you can tell that he blocked that lightsaber with the Force.
Huh.
But like you if you blinked, you wouldn't even notice it, right?
I think
So there's the same scene where Rey is fighting like one of the Imperial Guards, and he's got her hands wrapped up, so she drops the lightsaber and then Force pulls it to her other hand and then stabs him. And I just thought that was like the absolute like best scene. That was so sweet when that happened. Like I just absolutely love that. I like everything about that scene. That was my favorite part of the movie, was that whole fight scene. And that them sitting there with Snoke and Snoke being arrogant, and the language Snoke used was so awesome. And like, where I once sensed doubt, I now sense resolve. Like, just how he said that was so, like, Emperor-esque. I don't know. I loved it. I, like, was sitting there like, this is it. This is perfect.
Well, so also that, like, that was when I thought that Rey was going to go bad. And then they fought, like, side by side, and I was like, oh, no, this is where she, like, feels the dark side. Like, check them out. They're, like, going back to back. Yeah, that was just like super cool, and it was really kind of there was the gravity of like, at least for me, you know, because she turned dark. There was also the gravity of like they're working together, which up to this point they needed to be spatially separated in order to make sure that they didn't stab each other with their laser swords. But now they can be together and they can like work together and maybe have this common understanding. So I thought plot-wise, a good move, like a good scene to have. I think actually was super cool. I liked the. It was actually a callback. I don't know if you have seen this or not. There's a fan set of movies online where there's just like these two guys that do lightsaber battles. I swear that we watched this together. Like sometime in our apartment way back when. And there's one where they like turn on like a flashlight and it's like. And it's just very quick. I love that because I thought that was a call out to the fan movie.
Really?
Where they do exactly that. Where it's like,
yeah, that's sweet. Like, and Kylo Ren is just really good with the lightsaber all around. Like, I love when he lights it and he does like that, like almost like it's like rocketing out of his hand. Like that whole maneuver he does is really awesome, and it just adds to like how cool the lightsaber is. So yeah, I think they did that really well. That scene was great, with the exception to me of killing Snoke. And I didn't quite get that. And then there's a scene right after where General Hux almost looks like he's gonna like kill Kylo while he's like passed out or something, but then he doesn't. And I don't know, there's a bunch of stuff in that scene and how the lightsaber gets broken in half. I wasn't a big fan of that either. But everything else in that scene I thought was just like perfectly executed. I even loved how it visually looked with like the red everywhere, and like how the Imperial guards were basically ghosts from Mario. Like until you're moving, they can't like run after you, or like they were like the nurses in Silent Hill.
Yeah.
Like they moved like all erratic and everything. Like I really like that.
Yeah. So I think at the very end of the scene, I was really worried.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, "Well, Snoke's dead. We're good."
Yeah. Right.
Like, what you gotta do is be like, "Kylo, don't be a jerk," and he'd be like, "Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know that."
Right.
And then we'd be like, "Yeah, don't." And then we don't have a trilogy. We have 2 movies, and we're just done. So I think I was a little worried about it. Okay, I think I do remember being legitimately worried at some point in time that it was like, well, there's not going to be a 3rd movie now. It was like a problem solved, right? Like Snoke's dead. Convince Kylo to stop being a jerk.
Right.
We good? Like I really thought Rey was just gonna like look around and be like, "We good? It's all fine."
I think it could have been cool. What could have been cool is if Kylo in that moment would have went to the light side, told Rey who her parents were, and then it would have been somebody worse or something, and then she would have went dark. Like if she would have found out her parents.
Oh, and they switch.
Yeah, like they switched in that moment. That would have been pretty cool. But yeah, I mean, I liked where it went in that scene. I really liked how Kylo he didn't get like Sith eyes, like he didn't go like yellow with his eyes or anything. How he was just like, forget the Jedi, forget the Sith, like forget everything, like forget the past, and just like how that really paralleled his character. Like in order to deal with the conflict inside, it was easier for him just to go like, forget all this, like let's not even think about it. That just is so congruent with like how people who are traumatized like feel, like they just don't want to think about the past. I really like that, and like he's like going off into this like gray Jedi category where he's kind of like in between, and she's like, you can't do that. That's like breaking the rules.
Yeah, which is it's funny. It reminds me of like the I think she reminds me a lot of Luke in that way because he didn't even know the rules of the Force. He had like known about the Force for all of like 10 minutes before he's on the Millennium Falcon, being like, "Well, you don't know about the Force," and so
right.
And Solo's like, I don't care. I'm a smuggler. Like it's a very like I don't care. And I like how Rey was like, well, you can't just do that. Like you can't be both, or like that's too ambiguous.
Right.
And his was like, yeah, no, this is fine. I can kill people when it's okay, and I can not kill people when it's not okay.
Right. What do you think is their choice for not making him go like full Sith at any moment? Like they never give him the yellow eyes.
I don't know. Whatever the choice is, I'm wholeheartedly agreeing with it. I love that he's actually dabbling. I think that's what like a lot of people in the extended universe really love the like Rey Luke Jedi kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Where it's like, oh, he does this, or like people like the character of Mace Windu in the extended universe because like, oh, he uses dark side, and that's the purple thing. It has nothing to do with Sam Jackson. It's because he uses the dark side when he fights, and they do like playing around in that space, and I think I like it too. Why would you use Force lightning if you can use Force lightning? Mm-hmm. And I think the non-commitment is really what makes Kylo Ren interesting. Mm-hmm. I think we saw I think we did try and do the struggle bit where it's like, well, is he like Vader? Does he struggle with light side, dark side? Right. And I think he doesn't struggle with it. He's just sort of different from it. Right. He's other than it. And it's not I'm struggling anymore. I killed my dad, and that's probably wrong. I didn't kill my mom. That's, from my other perspective of me, probably wrong.
Right. I killed Snoke, which was probably good.
Like, I did all of those things. You can, like, historically go back and see that I've done. And so I think that's, like, what I'm excited about, what I'm excited to see where, he's... The struggle will then be Rey, who is, like, adopting the dogmatic bit of the Jedi, mm-hmm. and Kylo Ren being like, this is so stupid. Like, you don't have to do any of that. It's right. His voice didn't. And she's like, no, light side, good side. And then I want, like, Force Luke to come out and say, I just told you about all of this. You don't have to do any of it. It's all
Right.
BS. It's all self-aggrandizing, like good and bad. It's like you have this aspect, you have this spectrum to play around on.
Right.
You end up doing whatever you like. Acting is who you are. I think it's like a modern message, but
Yeah.
it's also like I think that's
like a postmodern message, even. Yeah, like for sure. So, okay. All right, so let's keep on moving here. So we're going. We've got Poe tries to have a mutiny on the ship at that point, gets shot down by Leia, who like suddenly wakes up. Poe, and then there's like that interesting moment where after Poe's like knocked out by Leia, the two like Vice Admiral Hoko or whatever her I can't remember her name now, Holdco or whatever, and Leia are like, oh Poe, he's got a lot to learn. I really like him. Me too. And I thought that was kind of a cool moment too. I like that like moment where they said that they both liked him, even though like on the surface they were kind of being mean to him, because they kind of were saying like, oh, we like his spirit as like a rebel, and that's like perfect, but he just needs like a little bit of tweak. It kind of showed that they were like still committed to helping him develop or like caring about him. They weren't just like, oh, he's an idiot, you know. And I don't know. I like that. It like showed a commitment to him despite him being kind of a jerk.
And I think that really plays with Leia's character, especially because she was married to Han Solo.
Mm-hmm.
How much more of like a rebel scum can you get?
Right.
And somebody who's literally been called rebel scum.
Right.
And yeah, it's just I think that she would see some of that in like well, Kylo is sort of lost and rebelled too far, and so maybe she's sort of had like a little bit of a comeuppance for that, or like a second chance. She sees like a second chance with Poe, or some way to like, I don't know, vicariously, express some things she felt for Han through him. So I think that was super important. I'm still going back on it. I think Holder was just like completely unnecessary. I mean, I like what she did. I like all the scenes that she was in. I like the way that it was acted. But it's just like you could have just done that with just Leia, and it would have.
Right, it would have been just fine without her being in it. So, so after that, we find out that there actually was a plan. They were going to go to this planet Crate, which is very Hoth-esque.
Okay.
Crate is the salt planet.
Okay.
With like the red underneath, and I love that aesthetic, like the salt with the red underneath, especially when like Kylo was fighting on it. And like there was that moment where he looks like he slices Luke, and then you see his like footprint like slide red, but it makes you think like the blood came out, but it didn't. And then something that I heard online that really twisted my noodle was they said like one of the ways Luke's not really there is because he doesn't make any marks as he walks. Like he should have made red marks as he walked up.
Oh. Okay. So when I was watching it, he like looks much younger.
Right.
That was the visual cue that I went on. I would have to I would have to watch it again to see I didn't even notice that.
Right.
It's big battles. It's the big battle. Big battle madness.
Well, I don't think most people noticed that. I just heard that online, and I was like, oh, that's an awesome little Easter egg, for like.
It's easy to miss.
Yeah. But you got this whole scene where they're kind of in this mine and they bring out the cannon blaster thing or whatever that's going to shoot through the wall. And then probably the worst choice in the movie to have Rose save Finn from self-sacrificing himself. That was just like a very strange, she was like, we save the things we love. And it kind of doomed the rest of the resistance. It just didn't make any sense. It was really, really awkward. And then the worst part was in the background while they're talking and kissing or whatever, you see the wall being blown away. And so it was kind of what was the point of that?
Yeah. So I'm gonna do my charitable glasses, and I'm just gonna put them on and be like, this is as charitable as I can be to that. Because I think I agree that it was just this is kind of dumb. But what I think they might have been trying to show was, so Finn was ready to desert because he cares about Rey.
Mm-hmm.
That was how they met. And so she's finally doing something that's I'm doing something stupid that's not going to help anybody. but he's not there to stop her from doing that. I don't know. Maybe that's way too charitable of a telling of it, but I don't know if that was the intent of the scene or they just needed a way to have Luke do the gas blaster at scene and then fight with Kylo Ren. Because if they had stopped the hammer blaster thing, they would have just been fine.
Right.
So, you know, there's like, was it just a mechanism or was it like supposed to be? And this is the same auteur trap we were trying to not get into earlier, which is if you didn't understand it, like if it was stupid, you just didn't understand it. So I want to back off from that and say like, yeah, it was probably just stupid. Probably just needed a reason for Luke to be there.
Right, and I was actually kind of surprised that they didn't do anything like Hoth-esque with like, why not have him try to wrap a cable around the cannon or, you know, something else where she could have saved him without it being like him sacrificing himself. You know what I mean?
And it was actually especially weird with his particular character because he didn't know that Rey was on the planet because she wasn't on the planet, right? They had sent the distress beacon and she was coming.
Right.
Yeah. Yes.
I mean, the arc I guess they were supposed to go from is like from him abandoning to him self-sacrificing, but there was no time where he learned that lesson. Like, when did he learn that lesson? When DJ betrayed him? Like, there was no moment of, like, I feel this deep connection to this. Like, I need to be a better person. Like, it just, that never happened. Like, the only time that happened was when Rose yelled at him at the beginning.
Yeah. But that's not, like, a lesson.
I guess he fought Phasma, but, like, that...
Phasma's super unimportant.
Right.
Like, I get that maybe for his like character's point of view that would be important, but
right. So it was just strange on all fronts, and it felt like they just needed to have a kiss scene between the two of them. They had to like set it up, and they got really desperate to do it. So
if you watch The Force Awakens again, though, like and this is not to like be cheeky, but I legitimately think that Poe and Finn is a way better like
relationship. Yeah, right.
So, it's if they were going to do that, and they needed characters to kiss because you need characters for some reason, like their relationship to each other is like, wow, you showed you helped me escape to a new life. You showed me like my place in belonging. You helped me grow as a person, and you show me things that are things that I aspire to be. That's like what you look for in love, right? Which is like help, push me to my better half. Help me help you, like, bring you to your best half. And, like, I mean, it fits better. I know that people will be like, oh, this is social justice, like, you gotta have gay... Like, no, that's not what it's about. It's more about, like, it's just a better relationship.
Right. I don't think Disney would do that, though, unfortunately. I think Disney they'll just tease it a little bit. Like, but that's it, because they won't go there because they don't want any negative controversy. And all it'll take is one fundamental Christian family in the South to be like, I'm not going to see Star Wars. Yeah. That's got the gays in it, or whatever. You know, and then, like, it's not going to happen anymore. So, yeah, I think that's it. They'll just tease it a little bit, like, oh, this could be a possibility, and that's it, you know? So, yeah. I mean, they got pushed back for Beauty and the Beast for having, like, an obviously gay character in there.
I just saw... That movie is way better than it had any like right to be. It was amazing. Yeah. We should probably do a whole thing on that. Honestly, I watched it recently. And I was like, "Holy crap! This is a very good movie."
Okay. Side note. So so let's get to the big ending, which is Luke shows up. He appears. He looks better. He looks like he shaved and got a haircut. He goes to Leia. He gives her the dice, and then he goes forward. And he commences with badassery. So he does the, Kylo's freaking out, put every gun on him, fire, fire, fire. And he does like the dirt on my shoulder thing, which, I don't know, Dan, what did you think about that?
So stupid.
You didn't like that?
No. Okay, here's a way better way to do that. So you remember in Phantom Menace when Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon Jinn and Darth Maul are like there, and they all just like take their robes off all at the same time.
Right.
And then you know it's like, oh, like this is happening.
Right.
I think what you do is you have Luke walk out, and instead of doing like a goofy like,
yeah, like get that dirt off your shoulder. There's no, yeah.
I'm already thinking that in my mind. I don't need you to be too ham-fisted about it, but just have him instead just drop the cloak and be like, all right. Are we ready to do this now?
Yeah.
Like, you did the whole toy guns thing cool. And I think that would have played a lot better, a lot closer to his character.
Right. Or how about this, Dan? This is what I think that would have been better, of course, because anything would have been better, to be honest. But here's what I see. Luke does that, drops the cape, and then goes, and all the Imperial walkers collapse onto each other.
Sure.
Right? And then instead of Kylo being like, get me down there, Kylo Ren walks out of the collapsed Imperial walker.
Sure.
Right? Isn't that better? And then you get that moment of Luke doing something with the Force that we've all wanted, of him like, pushing something big, or like raising the X-Wing, doing something with the Force. Anyway, so that happens. Kylo comes down. Kylo starts fighting him. Luke has some really great lines. I like the one where he's like, everything you just said was wrong.
Wasn't that a callback from earlier? There was a thing that he said to Rey, wasn't it?
Well, I don't know. No, when?
That, like, funny, everything that you just said is completely... I swear that was a callback from earlier in the movie.
Oh, really? I don't remember that. Yeah. Could be.
Yeah, I mean, it was good. Whether it was a callback or not, it just made it like your whole understanding of how things are is useless. I was going to say, the other benefit of the Kylo Ren kind of like jumping out of, or like coming out of like broken stuff, is you also get to see Kylo Ren be badass again, and thus proving that it's like, well, it's not totally unequal.
Right.
I think the impression that we got from the fight was that it was just totally unequal. And
right.
There's not a chance. I was like not concerned for Luke's well-being at any point.
Right. And I love that scene. I like that little like maneuver like Luke pulls, where he does like the quick, like he basically like ducks down and then does a little spin move. Like that was so sweet. It was like that little taste of what like I really wanted, which is like, just give me Luke doing something like why couldn't Luke fight Snoke? Like, give me that moment where he like is having a force battle with somebody that's like awesome and isn't Yoda-esque, where Yoda's doing backflips and like 1,000 things. Like, just show somebody who's phenomenal with the Force and do it right this time. So I was just like, oh, you gave me a little flavor of it, But then they didn't stick to it. And then, of course, we've got, he says, if you strike me down in anger, I'll be with you forever, just like your father. Which is an awesome line and such a great like callback to Obi-Wan. Like, strike me down now and I'll become more powerful than you could possibly imagine. Such a great like callback there, and like how they slightly modified it. I really like that scene. I just really like that whole part. And then you find out he was like meditating the whole time, or as I've heard it called, astro projecting himself.
Yeah, astral projection, like being a different place and doing the thing.
Right.
Here's the problem. I liked the scene. I thought it was cool. I thought it was nice that he was like getting into the fray. He finally got sucked into the fray. His whole thesis throughout the movie was, I'm not going to get sucked in.
Right.
And he does. And it looks like he does. But what was disappointing was that he's like, oh, he didn't die. Oh, wow. And now we're going to get to see that. We're like going to get the payoff of like exactly what you're talking about. It's like Luke doing something really cool.
Right.
But then he's actually meditating back on the island, and the Force Ghost itself.
Right. And the worst part about that is the last line he says before that is like, see you around, kid.
Which, that's a Han Solo line.
Right. And it's just like, you makes him see like, oh, you're like, I'm coming back. But then he like does the opposite. So it's not like a good like, whoa, you double tricked. It's not like, oh, Neo actually was in the Matrix the whole time. Like, even though he's outside of the Matrix, like a good kind of confusion that you're like, oh, I'm so excited for the next movie. It's just like, well, okay, we already know what happens when people become Force ghosts. They get to show up for 5 seconds and talk.
Yeah.
And
or they don't talk and they just look lovingly on.
Right. Or I guess Yoda gets to be Thor and can bring down the lightning.
Alright.
So maybe
With the exception of Yoda's like word choice, I thought that was good. Yeah, like we know what happens to Force Ghost. You're right. Like, and he's dead, and we just saw him not die. But now I sort of have to process that he did die, but I don't actually get the full like John Williams like orchestral no kind of thing. I just have to deal with that.
Right. And that just, I mean, obviously he's probably going to be back as like a Force Ghost in the next one, but it just robs us of the big lightsaber battle, like him showing what like the ultimate Jedi is capable of, like what we've all been waiting for. And that just kills me. Like I can't get over that they decided to do that. And that's what I was talking about at the beginning, that there's not this sense of loss. There's not this sense of loss like, oh, I get it. You're supposed to feel lost just like the characters feel loss around like losing Luke. It's like, no, like you just burned a bridge that you can't come back from. That is like a huge thing that like everybody has imagined in their head. Like, what happens to Luke? Like, imagine how powerful he could become. Like, what does it mean to bring balance to the Force? Right? Like,
yeah, and now there's just no more. That sort of painted it into a corner.
Right. So now he's going to be a Force Ghost. He gets to talk a little bit, and that's about it.
And that might be fine, but again, it's just kind of like we spent an entire movie looking for this guy.
Yeah. But again, like, yeah, and that's the thing is, like, it was. Oh, sorry, I get so frustrated about this.
But movie.
Yeah, it was like, yeah, exactly. It's like they set up the first whole movie just to get to him, and then they just wasted him. Like,
yeah. And I think that's probably why most people will feel like weird about the movie, is that they did get to see cool stuff. You did actually get to see Luke in a lightsaber battle. Like, he did some pretty cool stuff.
Right.
But they just sort of, it's gone now. That's right. Like all there was to it.
And rather than spending like him having like a 20-minute lightsaber battle with Kylo Ren, where then you find out he hasn't been there the whole time and it blows your mind, it's like instead we get 20 minutes of a casino planet.
Yeah, I have a feeling that the casino planet is going to be the like. That's going to be the thing that people are going to remember as the like, oh, and this is why this movie is bad.
Yeah.
Like, if you're finding the like internet trolley, I think we've been washing between like I love this and I hate this
right
so far, and I think that's probably like correct at the end of the day, because it's like I did love it, and it also kind of sucked at some parts, and yeah, I think that will be like the scene that gets picked apart a lot. But I think that the one that I really hope kind of gets dug into is like the wasted potential of things, right? Like they wasted Leia's death, they wasted Luke's death. Because later they died. They like there was these scenes that were like could have been really big set pieces, and they're just kind of like, well, this is it's just like Yoda digging through like Luke's cracks.
Yeah.
And then throws a lightsaber back behind him.
Or just straight up Luke throwing the lightsaber. That kind of was a good metaphor for parts of the movie, right? Like, oh, you love this? Who cares?
Yep. You spend an entire movie trying to get the stupid lightsaber. Well, the point of the movie, of course, was not to get the lightsaber.
Right.
It certainly came.
All right, Dan. Yeah. Well, we're approaching the 2-hour mark, and I'm going to go on to say that we have done an epic breakdown of this movie. Going on the 2-hour mark. I don't know if anybody stuck with us through all this time, but if you did, good for you. You're a good geek in your 30s.
Yeah. We've almost as long as the movie.
Yeah. We planned on doing about a half hour, and here we are at the 2-hour mark. This isn't going to go the way you think it is. Okay, so Dan, let's rather than going through all of our questions, let's just pick one of our questions each, and let's do this fun, Dan. Why don't I'll pick one of your questions, and then you pick one of my questions or thoughts, okay?
All right.
So let me look here. Okay, I got mine. So Dan, you asked if is this the dark movie like a la Empire?
Mhm.
So what do you think now that you've seen it?
Uh, I even though the movie had things uh, fail, um, we're not at really like a dark point. I mean, we still have General Organa. You have a force wielder. You have your key pilot and your you have Finn, Poe, and Rey. They're all together. They have Leia. They learn things from Luke. They're besides like losing the teacher, but still like gaining knowledge from him. They're not at a dark spot. It doesn't even feel dark.
Mm-hmm.
The thing that felt dark about Empire was like Han's gone. The like rebel fleet is scattered. The things that felt dark about
Like
it were
Luke lost his hand, and you just found out
plus,
Darth Vader's his father.
yeah, you're really in a bad spot.
Like Lando betrayed them.
Yeah, and I think that was the part where it's like people you care about doing bad things, or like nobody's in but like right now, I mean, yeah, there are like 14 rebels left or something.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I don't know, maybe I'm misreading it, but it doesn't seem like it was a very dark movie. I think they tried to, but I don't think it ultimately wound up being. I think it was like the jokes and that and whatever else. It just didn't. It didn't need to be Empire. I don't need it to rhyme. I don't need it to echo. But it definitely, I think, I went in wondering that, and I definitely was not.
But that's, I guess the thing is like, even though it ended on such a hopeful note, and that was the theme of the movie, like the spark that ignites the rebellion, right? Even though it had a hopeful mark, I don't feel hopeful. Like I kind of feel like probably people would have felt at the end of Empire, like what the hell? Well, what the heck kind of ending is that? Like it's all. I mean, it's easy to see like why Empire is awesome when you know what happens in Return of the Jedi. But I imagine a lot of people walked out of Empire like, well, that was bullshit. Like what the heck was that? Like that's where it ends. And they had to wait like the 2 years. Like it's kind of like the Red Wedding. And it's like you're like, well, why? Like,
yeah, I think. Well, so then we have to just wait 2 years, and we'll just come back to this video mark in 2 years and figure out if we just got Empire, or if not. I really wanted to go with the goofy one, Evil BB-8. Did it work?
well, he was on screen for a second. He gave the mean face to BB-8. Yeah, like that was so weird that they made such a big deal of Evil BB-8, and he was literally in one scene for 5 seconds.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say he didn't work.
How could they have made him work?
I would have had him interact with BB-8.
I wanted to do a softball. The merchandising aspect of things, because like I was a teacher for a time. I taught like elementary age students, and there are some kids who just love the like dark side stuff.
Mm-hmm.
They're just like, I just want to be Darth Vader all the time. I think that it just sells really well. And so somebody was like, BB-8, he's orange. I don't like orange.
Yeah.
What if it's black and gray? Cool. I think that would have been a way better betrayal.
Right.
Than DJ. His name was DJ? It's so just...
Yeah, it was DJ.
It's not like a Star Wars thing?
Yeah.
Is that why it's upsetting? But it's not with DJ? It's not a Star Wars name?
Yeah, it just feels like his name should be like Canto Salanta or something. You know what I mean? Like something like that, but it's DJ. And no last name, just DJ.
That's it. Yeah. Awesome.
Anyway.
So all of everything we've said, I liked the movie. You weren't looking to this as a review to see whether you should or shouldn't see it. If you're watching this, you already knew if you were going to see it or not. Thank you for listening to almost as long as the movie. Really appreciate it.
All right, so I would love to see your comments down at the bottom here. If you like the video, hit us a like, all that good stuff. You know, you would know it. You've been on YouTube. I don't got to say it to you again. So if you have any questions, you want us to address stuff, please let us know. We are the Geeks in our 30s, and I am Kipp Pietrantonio.
I'm Dan.
All right, have a good one. May the Force be with you.
Force be with you.